The cameras flashed, the crowd froze. And just like that, Hollywood had a new obsession.
It happens in an instant, doesn't it?
It really does. But I want to rewind for a second and set the scene here. Imagine you immigrate to a brand new country. You're, what, 12 years old?
Yeah, right around 12.
Right, 12 years old, and you do not speak a single word of the local language. Like, you are completely isolated. So you sit in front of a television and you figure out this wild survival mechanism. Yeah. You literally learn how to speak English by studying every single word your absolute favorite movie star says on screen.
I mean, it is a phenomenal survival story.
Yeah.
Just finding a lifeline in pop culture because, well, it's kind of the only thing that crosses the language barrier when you're a kid.
Exactly. But fast forward a couple of decades, right? Not only have you made it in Hollywood, but you were actually cast as the lead villain, acting opposite that exact same movie star who taught you how to speak.
Oh, wow. Which sounds like the ultimate, triumphant, perfectly scripted Hollywood ending.
It does. It sounds perfect. But there is a massive catch.
Because there's always a toll to pay in Hollywood.
Always. The world doesn't actually want to talk to you about this incredible movie. Like, they don't really want to talk to you about your acting or this beautiful full circle moment. The only thing anyone wants to ask you about, literally the only thing the cameras care about, is your ex-wife.
And that right there is the paradox of modern visibility. The platform you have is absolutely massive, but the microphone is permanently tuned to someone else's frequency.
Well said. Welcome to this deep dive, everyone. Today, we are taking a massive stack of recent entertainment news, casting announcements, and celebrity interviews, pulling from sources like Reality Tea, The Cinemaholic, OK Magazine, and a bunch of others.
We've got a lot to get through today.
We really do. And our mission here is to examine the, frankly, fascinating career and the ongoing psychological reinvention of Sam Asghari.
Yeah, so to set the stage for you, Asghari is an actor and a fitness model who is married to pop icon Britney Spears from 2022 to 2023. And in some recent interviews, he has stated quite plainly that he accepts he will probably never escape the label of being Mr. Britney Spears. But what we are going to explore today is the machinery behind that fame.
And how he's handling it.
Exactly. We're looking at how, rather than fighting a label he really can't control, he is strategically leaning into it. He is weaponizing the immense visibility it brings to launch a full-scale action movie career, while simultaneously attempting to redirect that massive spotlight toward human rights advocacy in his birthplace of Iran.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the sheer psychological weight of the situation is just heavy. We're looking at these recent interviews from Page Six and OK Magazine, where Asghari was asked flat out if he thinks there will ever be a time when people stop asking him about his highly publicized troubled ex.
Right, the million-dollar question.
Exactly. And his response was blunt. He just said never going to happen. But look, I have to push back here before we even get into the weeds. Is he actually accepting this, or is this just, the ultimate PR spin for a situation he literally cannot change?
Well, it's a fair question, because it does sound like a perfectly rehearsed public relations line, right?
Yeah, very polished.
But if you dig into the mechanics of how Hollywood operates, you start to see why this level of acceptance is practically mandatory for his survival. If you look at his 2025 interview on iHeartRadio, he really lays out the dichotomy of this specific type of fame.
Right, because they met on set, didn't they?
Yeah, he and Spears met as co-workers back in 2016 on the set of her Slumber Party music video. And he acknowledges that being in such a heavily scrutinized super public relationship undeniably gave him a platform. He literally told them, I can't sit here and lie and say it wasn't good for me.
Okay, sure. But the mechanism of that fame is totally out of his control. I was thinking about this, and it's like being the opening act for the biggest stadium rock band in the world.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right, yes. You get to walk out on that stage, you get the pyrotechnics, you get the blinding lights, you get 80,000 people screaming their heads off.
But the psychological reality is that nobody's actually listening to your songs.
Exactly. They are just waiting for you to get out of the way so the main event can start. The audience's expectation is entirely locked onto the main act. And you can't just sing louder to change their minds,
That is a perfect way to look at it. You just can't outsing the expectation. And he experienced this firsthand in casting rooms.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, while his name recognition skyrocketed to global levels, Hollywood agents and casting directors suddenly couldn't see past the tabloid caricature. He became really rigidly pigeonholed.
Because the industry just needs easily marketable boxes.
Right, and his box was labeled pop star's boyfriend, or like cheesy fitness trainer. He told iHeart that he had to work twice as hard just to prove he was a legitimate talent, rather than just a +1 who stumbled onto a red carpet and decided he wanted to be an actor.
Which raises the question of how you actually survive that kind of white noise without losing your mind. I mean, if you are constantly walking into rooms where people have already decided exactly who you are based on a supermarket tabloid, you have to find a way to anchor yourself in reality. And I think that explains a lot about his recent personal life updates.
Oh, you're talking about his relationship with Brooke Irvine.
Yes, exactly. The Times of India reported he spent time focusing on himself after the split, but stepped out in April 2025 in Mexico with Irvine. And what fascinates me here isn't the gossip of who he is dating.
Right. That's not what this deep dive is about.
No, it's the psychological contrast she represents compared to the Hollywood machine.
Yeah, her background is entirely removed from the entertainment industry echo chamber. She's a former competitive cheerleader.
And we aren't talking about casually standing on a sideline either.
No, not at all. She won back-to-back All-Star World Championships in 2017 and 2018 with a highly elite team called Cali Black Ops. And that requires an insane level of discipline, physical rigor, and structural teamwork. And now she's actually shifted gears into luxury real estate, specializing in high-end rentals in Los Angeles.
See, think about the mechanics of those two professions for a second. Competitive cheerleading and real estate, they are driven by tangible metrics.
Right.
You either hit the routine perfectly or you don't. You either close the lease on the Bel Air mansion or you don't. It is a world of concrete reality.
Which is the exact opposite of the chaotic, perception-based, completely uncontrollable whirlwind of tabloid fame.
Exactly. Finding a grounded anchor who operates in a world of strict discipline and measurable results, it feels like a psychological necessity for him right now.
It really is about taking back control. When the media narrative is entirely out of your hands, you build a foundation in your personal life that is entirely solid. Friends in the press described her as a normal girl, which really just means she isn't playing the Hollywood perception game. She provides a baseline of reality.
But, personal stability only solves half the problem. Accepting your past and finding a stable partner is great, but reshaping how the global public views your future requires a deliberate, highly visible strategy.
It requires overriding the old narrative with something visually undeniable.
Yes. And here's where it gets really interesting. And later in the deep dive, we'll talk about a twist with his advocacy that nobody saw coming. But first, we mentioned at the top of the deep dive that Asghari is starring opposite his childhood idol.
Right, the movie star who taught him English.
Exactly. He's in a movie called The Gentleman Thief, directed by Randall Emmett, releasing on July 28th, 2026. It's the third installment in a franchise alongside John Travolta, Quavo, and Lucas Haas.
And this isn't some subtle indie drama where he's trying to slowly prove his acting chops in the background. He is playing a villain named Victor. And the plot is pure, high-stakes, 80s-style cinematic adrenaline.
Oh, totally.
You've got a retired master thief, a ruthless collector, a fake death, and massive explosions on an ultra-luxurious yacht. Asghari has said he's absolutely relishing the opportunity to play the baddest guy.
I want to propose a theory here on why he is leaning so hard into this specific genre. I look at this action role as a containment strategy.
A containment strategy. Okay, walk me through that.
So think about a massive toxic chemical spill.
Okay.
When a corporation has a catastrophic leak, and in this case we're talking about years of highly toxic, uncontrollable tabloid gossip, you cannot clean that up with a polite press release.
No, absolutely not.
Right. You have to build a giant physical concrete dome over the entire site to contain the narrative. For Asghari, his undeniable, overwhelming physical presence on screen is that concrete dome.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. You put a guy who looks like a Greek god on a yacht throwing punches, and it creates a visual so loud that it overrides the old cheesy fitness trainer label. It's a brute force method of changing the subject.
That makes complete sense. You basically bypass the intellectual argument of, please take me seriously, and go straight to a visceral visual argument. And there's a deeper historical layer to this strategy for him, too.
Tell me about that.
In an interview with Extra, he shared the anecdote we teased earlier about moving to the U.S. at 12 from Iran and not speaking English.
Right. This is the Travolta connection.
Exactly. The specific movie that acted as his Rosetta Stone was The Taking of Pelham 123, starring John Travolta and Denzel Washington.
Which is just a mind-blowing full-circle moment, acting opposite the guy you learned English from. But it also explains why the action genre is so crucial to his identity.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of action cinema. Action movies rely on a highly specific visual language. For a kid who doesn't understand the dialogue, the kinetic energy of an action film, The standoffs, the body language, the physical stakes, that is a universal syntax.
A punch translates perfectly without subtitles.
Exactly. It provided him a lifeline to understand American culture when he had literally no other tools. And now he's using that exact same universal language of physicality to bypass the tabloid gossip cycle. He doesn't need the audience to read a nuanced interview. He just needs them to watch him take up space.
And he is very calculated about exactly what kind of space he wants to take up. In that extra interview, he explicitly talks about wanting to spark a revival of the classic 80s action hero.
Oh, yeah, the larger-than-life guys.
Exactly. The intensely muscular archetypes of Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. He actually joked, and I love this quote, he said, "No offense to Timothy Chalamet, but I already had the muscles anyway."
It's a funny line, but it reveals a very sharp awareness of the industry landscape. Current Hollywood leading men often fit a much more slender, brooding, emotionally vulnerable profile.
Right, totally different vibe.
Yeah. Asghari knows exactly what his assets are, and he knows agents previously dismissed those assets as a liability. So instead of trying to shrink himself down to fit the current Chalamet-style mold, he is carving out a completely different lane by looking backward to an era where sheer physical mass was the narrative.
It's brilliant. He's weaponizing the very thing he was mocked for. But I think what surprised me the most, going through this huge stack of sources, is that his ambition doesn't stop at just being a famous action star.
No, it goes much deeper than that.
The core of his identity seems rooted in something much heavier. He witnessed things long before he ever saw a Hollywood red carpet, and that seems to be driving the actual end game here.
You're referring to his advocacy work, and this is really where we see the transition from merely surviving fame to actively redirecting it. In interviews with TMZ Live and the Washington Times, Asghari makes a point to explicitly state that he isn't chasing fame for its own sake.
Right.
He views living in the United States as winning the lottery, and he feels a deep, non-negotiable obligation to use his visibility to be a voice for the voiceless.
Specifically regarding human rights in his birthplace of Iran.
Correct. And to be completely clear, as we unpack this part of the deep dive, we are strictly reporting his stated viewpoints and the causes he has chosen to champion. We aren't taking sides, just sharing what he's putting out there.
Absolutely.
According to Asghari, he is deeply concerned about humanitarian issues, particularly the Iranian regime's treatment of its citizens and the severe denial of basic rights for women. He told the Washington Times that the struggle of the people inside Iran is deeply personal to him, noting the incredible risks many Iranians face simply for speaking out or protesting.
Which takes a significant amount of courage for him to do from a very public platform, considering he still has ties to his birthplace. But there was a specific moment in his recent media tour that completely stopped me in my tracks.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
It perfectly illustrates how he is managing this insane media ecosystem. It was during an appearance on Piers Morgan Uncensored.
And we know exactly how those interviews operate.
Right. They want the viral moment. To give some context for you listening, Britney Spears has been in the news recently for some serious struggles, a DUI arrest, a stint in rehab, and naturally, Piers Morgan lays the trap. He asks Asghari about it, fishing for that tabloid soundbite because, well, that is what the algorithm demands.
The expectation is that he will either dish the dirt or awkwardly refuse to comment, both of which instantly generate a headline.
Exactly. But Asghari executes this incredible piece of PR judo. He doesn't take the bait. He doesn't engage with the cheap gossip at all. Instead, he pivots, and he draws this an incredibly profound, highly provocative parallel. He connects the systemic oppression of women that he witnessed growing up in Iran directly to the 13-year conservatorship that Spears endured here in the U.S.
It is a striking and deeply complex comparison. In the interview, he stated, "Coming from the country of Iran and seeing women being oppressed, that's something that stuck out to me and was a value I carried my whole entire life." He was careful to clarify he wasn't comparing the two situations perfectly one-to-one, but he noted that she was, in his words, oppressed by many people that took advantage of her and sort of had the same experience as women do in Iran.
I mean, let's just pause and think about the mechanics of that answer for a second.
Uh-huh.
It is a total mic drop moment. He took a question that was maliciously designed to generate cheap tabloid fodder, and he forcibly elevated it into a geopolitical conversation about systemic control, bodily autonomy, and the stripping of human rights.
He completely flipped the script.
He took the spotlight that was trying to burn him and reflected it onto a massive structural issue.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals a fascinating psychological through line in Sam Asghari's life. His entire trajectory from childhood to today has been defined by observing, navigating, and ultimately fighting against constraints.
Okay, walk me through that. What do you mean by constraints?
Well, think about the three major chapters of his life we've discussed today. First, you have the severe political and social constraints he witnessed growing up in Tehran, the denial of basic freedoms.
Right?
Second, you have the legal, financial, and personal constraints he witnessed his ex-wife endure during a 13-year conservatorship, where her autonomy was just stripped away.
Yeah.
And third, obviously on a much different, lower stakes scale, you have the professional and narrative constraints he faces in Hollywood, where the industry tries to box him into a limited, stereotypical punchline.
Wow. When you lay it out like that, it's literally a lifetime of being told what you can't do, or watching people be told what they can't do.
Exactly. And his response to all of these constraints is remarkably consistent. He uses the tools he has, his intense physical strength, his rigorous discipline, and now his massive public platform to push back.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Whether he's advocating for freedom for the citizens of Iran, defending his ex-wife's fundamental right to autonomy, or literally taking up space as an action hero to break out of a casting box, his core operating mechanism is resistance against oppression.
So, what does this all mean for us? We started this deep dive looking at a guy who the media desperately wants to define by a single, highly publicized relationship. But when you look at the mechanics of his choices, we've traced a much more complex journey.
A completely different narrative.
Yeah, we've seen an immigrant kid learning English by watching John Travolta, who is now starring opposite him. We've seen a Hollywood actor navigating the fallout of a globally obsessed over divorce by finding a grounded partner outside the industry machine.
We've seen the strategy of using physical presence, that language of the 80s action star, to build a containment dome over toxic gossip.
And most importantly, we saw how he is taking the white-hot spotlight that was forced upon him and physically turning it toward the issues that actually matter, like fighting for human rights.
Which brings us back to you, the listener. We all have labels placed on us. Maybe it's a label from your hometown, a reputation from a previous job, or a narrative born from a past relationship.
We've all been there.
People love to put us in boxes because it makes their world easier to understand, right? It reduces their cognitive load. The question Asghari's story poses to all of us is this: do you exhaust your energy constantly fighting to remove a label you can't control? Or do you accept the box they put you in, step up onto it, and use the height it gives you to illuminate your actual purpose?
Man, it is such a powerful shift in perspective. But it leaves me with one final thought for you to mull over, especially living in today's hyper-connected digital age. Today, we aren't just labeled by our peers or our neighbors. We are categorized by algorithms.
Oh, the algorithm.
Code that literally defines us by our most viral association, prioritizing drama over nuance every single time. If you are globally known for just one specific chapter of your life, is it ever truly possible to rewrite your own algorithm? Or is true freedom simply learning how to thrive and build a meaningful, impactful life entirely within the margins of someone else's story?
This raises a vital question about identity and autonomy in the modern era, and we leave that for you to explore on your own.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the headlines and keep exploring.